to Scott, who's going to show us some of the gear that they had at camp.
Hello, I'm Sergeant Scott Derr of Company G, 29th Ohio. Before we left our Camp Giddings to go to Kernstown, we were issued, of course, food, and we were getting a ration of hardtack. What it is flour and water baked. So we were given these. There's different ways we could eat them. We could boil them, we could fry them, or smash them up with our bayonet. This is a bayonet. You can, break it up. Well, then this is called a haversack. This is where we keep our food, our rations, and other things that we would need. And we put it in here. Another thing we would be issued would be a spoon, knife, and fork. That would go in your haversack, and a plate. And this is called a cup. This is their cup that they drink their coffee in, or whatever water, whatever they had that could drink. And that goes in your haversack. And this is a frying plate. This is half of a canteen, which is as the war progressed, canteens would fall apart, and they could put their bacon or vegetables, whatever they had to eat, over the fire. And they'd use their bayonet and as a holder. Something like this. Like this. And they just rest it on the fire, and then they bring it up, and they would carry that. Sometimes they keep it on the side of their canteen because it's all dirty. And then some of the guys were able to buy on their own would be cards. They buy these at, they're called sutlers. These people would sell items to the soldiers. So a lot of these soldiers were Christians, and their parents kind of frowned on them playing cards. So they would not tell in their letters that they were playing cards. But they keep that in their haversack. And some had bought some checkers. So there was a lot of times in camp there was nothing to do. So they could play cards, they could play checkers, or they could write to their family. So all that went into your haversack, plus any other food that you had. Oh, they also had a candle. They all needed a candle. They didn't have flashlights back in those days. And this is called a candlestick holder. It's made out of tin. And what they would do, they would stick this in the ground, and they stick this like this. So now they have light. So if they needed to write something or to cook their meal, they have some light. And that would all go in their haversack. Because I'll tell you the reason why. And this is a bucket that sometimes they would carry. Some would have this, or you could use your cup. This is where, a lot of soldiers like coffee, and what they do is crush up their beans, put it in the bucket with water, and then they would close the lid and set it on a fire. And when it's all boiling, the coffee beans would sink to the bottom of the cup, and then they would just pour this in their big tin cup to drink. All right. Now, before they also were issued, what would they need to sleep with? Well, this is called a ground cloth. It's a rubber. No, it's rubber. It's called a rubber blanket. One side's rubber, and those cloths. So they lay this first on the ground, like this. keeps them dry from if it's been raining. And this is a wool blanket that they would use. It's long, they can roll up in this, and they keep quite warm because it's made out of wool. Then, this is called a knapsack. This is what they carry on their backs. This is at the beginning of the war when they left Camp Giddings. But it was kind of heavy. Probably by the time they got to Maryland, they probably ditched some of this stuff because it was heavy. And they were marching 10, 20 miles a day. So this is what they carried in their knapsack. Would be a shirt, extra shirt, which they probably got from home because they were only issued one shirt from the government. And another thing is some nights it get cold, so this is a little nightcap they would wear to keep their head, keep them warm. They probably got this from home too, or a sutler. Also they would carry, make sure they had an extra pair of socks in case their feet would get wet. This is something else they probably got from home too because they were issued one pair of socks. And if they ever got marching and things started wore out or ripped, they would have a sewing kit, which would have extra material and needle and thread, and they carry that in their knapsack. If they got rid of their knapsack, they'd probably keep it in their haversack. This is something they would use. Like this, they could do a lot of sewing when there was nothing going on in camp. And this is a buttonhole polisher. They'd wrap this around a button and take any other material, like they would use coals from a fire, they had, and find a button here. And they stick this over the button like this, and they pull it like this. And polish their buttons because they always want to look sharp for the captain or the colonel. And so yeah, that's it. That's all they'd have, and it's all carried in here. And that's it.
How much did all of the gear weigh that they had to carry?
It was pretty heavy. I don't know the amount it was. You have a farm boy to carry all this. 4 pounds. 40 pounds.
Well, thank you for telling us about all of this gear.
You're welcome.